wonderful world. Welcome to another episode of the Soft and System Size to Sales, where myself and Jason break it down to all the different elements that must be aligned, working together, not against each other, to ensure you build strong performing sales funnels and get great clients into your business. And today, myself and Jason are going to be continuing on the conversation from last week, and that is why and how people buy products and services. Hello, everyone, and welcome, Jason, to another very interesting conversation and continuing on from our last week's discussion. So last week we focused on a number of things. We talked about the emotions people have when they buy, right? We talked about building the emotions, get logic off the table and building emotions. And then from that, how do you do that? And why should people buy from you? If they've already made a buying decision, why is it important? And how is it important for you to ensure that they buy from you and not your competition? And then you were also talking about building the needs, Jason. You were talking about ensuring you understand their needs and making sure you have a service to supply that need and not just half the service, all of the service. So we covered quite a bit, Jason. So what else do you think is important when it comes to selling and ensuring people buy from you and making sure those decisions are strong in your favor?
There's a lot of things behind that, and a lot of people, or some people, buy from fear. And what I mean by fear, I don't mean the insurance approach, or they probably can, because when you do buy insurance, you're buying against fear. You fear of something that might not ever happen. You're buying something that protects you. Building insurance, contents insurance, car insurance. Someone sold you that because you're buying against fear again. So, but there's good ways of presenting it, and there's also challenging ways of presenting it. What I mean by that, give you an example, is certain insurance companies, I'm not going to say who, but they would provide you a deck and a slide, and they would put the case against you as if you don't buy this policy and your children die or you die, how your kids going to survive without you. I personally don't like that, because that is emotional blackmail, and it's targeting the wrong emotions there, negative emotions. You can do the fear stuff, but you have to make sure it's done in a correct manner that is trustworthy, but also you're connecting to the emotions in the right way, not pushing them towards a fear and you push them against a corner. And people don't like to be sold like that. I know I don't. And that's from my perspective. So insurance, like, we all have to have insurance, and that's where we buy from the fear of not having it. But it's also social proof as well. Social proof basically means is everyone has it, so you need to have it. If you don't have it and you get hit by another car, or you hit another car, you're going to have to pay for the repair work or settle out of your own pocket. And that's what you're running up against. So there are lots of different elements in that. So we can have a look at the fear, or we can have a look at protection. If you don't get those that training, what's going to happen to your revenue further down the line if you're not best equipped with dealing with your customers in the best way possible? So if you did get that training, as an example, what's going to happen to your sales force? They're going to accelerate their sales for the next quarter because they're impacted by lots of new skills and lots. That's another example of protection. You're protecting your sales force against what uncertainty in the world. And there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of scarcity in the world. So that could be another way of protecting, or you're protecting your sales force by having additional training or additional coaching or whatever it might look and feel like.
Yeah, no, that's very well said, Jason, because fear is a powerful emotion. And I don't need to tell you about how what you see on the news and the TV about all the companies, the fear mongering that they present to people. And if you don't do this, this is what will happen. And then, like, even when it comes to medication, Jason, people are so fond of just going to the doctor, get a pill to solve their ill, because that's what they believe they should do. But the problem I see with that, Jason, is you said as you stated, it's not honest, it's not ethical.
Yep.
Fear is powerful when it's used correctly.
Yeah, exactly.
And you mentioned when I talk to companies, when I'm talking about sharing my services, I talk about the cost of not doing something.
Yep.
So the cost of staying where you are as opposed to where you could be. And I always try and paint a picture, Jason. Again, we talked about logic and emotion last week, where this is the problem, and this is the impact of the problem if you just stay where you are. This is how it's going to make your team feel over the next year and the 2 years, years if you don't take action, right? Then, however, if you take action, this is the solution, and this is how good looks like. This is what will happen. And as you said, you talk about social proof, case studies where you've done this before to prove, and then you bring in references or referees to talk about your services to them on your behalf. You know, so it's very important. And I always talk about pains, solving pains. I'm a problem solver, Jason, and I believe the same in sales. You should be a problem solver. Have a really strong inquiry process so you can understand and uncover all their issues, so then you can solve them.
I think that's having an analytical mind, because the traditional salesperson, how people perceive a salesperson, they're really outgoing, they're really this, that, and the other. But in reality, they're not. At the best, at the top of the top, are actually quite not as extroverted as everyone thinks, but they're very, very likable and easy to connect with. So that's another thing, and the reason why people buy is they genuinely like the other person. They connect well with the other person because they associate with them. There's some sort of bond connection that they like. They recognize you from somewhere, but they like you because you're into the same sort of stuff. Obviously, you need a lot more than that, but instant connection. Oh, I liked you because we get on with each other. But then he gave me the reasons why your X and Y products and services do work and they do benefit the business. But obviously, again, this is a certain aspect of rapport building. People buy from people they like, trust, but they also like people and brands they can connect with.
Exactly. And I love that word, Jason, connection, because that's what brands have come on to. The big brands don't sell. If you look at TV advertisements now, we mentioned this last week, that their goal on TV is not to sell. The goal is just to keep top of mind and connect and create these experiences. The first time I ever realized this as an advert, I'm not saying it was the first one, it was cars, because it's actually the perfect analogy. You see the Lexus driving through the mountains, given that view. It's a great car to drive on an open road and have that experience of driving a great car in a beautiful setting. It creates that experience in your mind. And companies have been doing this for a long time. And I'm not saying they were the first, I cannot say, but a lot of companies are now advertising, we're the brand to trust, we're the brand that can give you something better, we're the brand that will give you an experience.
Well, every time I drink this, I feel good inside. I'm not going to give you the brand, but it's like the Coke with a smile.
Yeah.
Like, it's that type of thing. That wasn't a Coke, by the way, but it's that type of thing that you recognize because it makes you feel good. But people buy from also experience as well, what it can actually give you, what you can imagine it's going to be worth. So you buy a holiday, but what you buy an experience. And in your head, several different reasons why you buy a holiday. But number one is you want to relax, you want to sit by the sun, or you want to go skiing. So you imagine yourself skiing down a wonderful resort in a good hotel. But it does depend on the context. If you're with a family, you want a family orientated hotel. Maybe you want the luxury behind that. Or if you're going down with the lads or the ladies or whatever, you might want a cheaper accommodation, but then you want the similar sort of fun element of it. But then you're buying into that experience. So it is that experience and how you connect with your imagination. That's how you're going to buy that travel, that service, or whatever, because you already imagine it. But obviously you have to connect with that person as well to make sure that whatever you buy is ticking all the boxes.
Yeah, and agree, Jason, because like if you think of a big brand, we won't mention any brands, right? And you're a sales rep for that brand, doesn't it make sense that first of all, if you're an ethical person, you want to be working for a company that has ethical values that you can support and trust, because then when you trust and support those values, it's easy to sell because they resonate, they complement yours. And so it's very important for you as a salesperson that your brand complements the business brand. Because again, as a buyer, if you see a discrepancy between the two of them, it'll create that little bit of maybe not, maybe it's not the right fit. I thought the brand was this, but after talking to this guy, something different, or this lady, right? So it's important to ensure the brand comes all the way through. If there's good values, they should be shared through and filtered through a good sales rep, because they should complement each other all the time, Jason. The reason why I say that, because as you know better than me, all the soft skills, all the NLP, all the different ways that you can influence or in some cases manipulate, Jason. And I don't believe in manipulate.
No, I don't either.
I always talk about the win-win, right? It has to win for you and it has to win for your customer, but it has to be shared wins, shared goals for shared values, right? But if I've often been in a situation where I thought I was going into a relationship with a win customer, but they were very difficult and I spent too much time, more time than I had anticipated, and it took the value for me out of it. And I didn't have a good experience. And vice versa, I've done work thinking I could put a square plug in a round hole and I couldn't. And they've had a bad experience. Either one, win, lose, or lose, win means lose, lose further down the road. So it has to be the win-win. And that's what I always work towards, because when you get that right, Jason, then that's how you build long-term sustainable customers that you can grow, you can upsell, cross-sell, because they trust you.
Yeah. And again, I know we've spoken about this before, but it's also the experience in you as a person, either sole trader or whether you're in the organization. And we did say that trust, but the honesty as well, saying, I can't serve you. I can't, that square peg in a round hole. Like, we only learn this from experience. As salespeople, we want to get it in there somehow and shoehorn it in. But in reality, that's what we should not be doing, because we can't put a square peg in a round hole. If it's not going to work, it's not going to work. The best thing that you can do from that client is just to backtrack and say, look, for this time, I don't think I can work with you on this particular project or this particular service or whatever it might be. Say you're selling IT solutions and the product that you actually have doesn't actually work with their system. And you go, well, I don't think we can actually do it this time. We'd love to work with you, but when you're ready and maybe when you have a different system, we can come back in and work with you on that. You can put it into any context that you like, depending on the service and product that you provide to them. And again, as you say, it's got to be win-win or maybe win-lose. Like, it, as long as you've connected with them on that emotional level, saying, come back to me when you're ready. And they will come back to you, because it's happened with me before. And they come back to you 3-6 months down the line and said, oh, by the way, you came to see us 6 months ago. Do you remember me? Oh, yes. Things have changed. I go, excellent. Well, let's have a discussion.
Yeah. And Jason, I've actually had similar situations when I went through an assessment process and I realized I wasn't the perfect fit for this client's needs. And I've let them know that. And I said, I know someone who possibly is. I'm gonna connect the two of you, and I'll keep in touch for a little bit just to make sure it is what I thought it was. Then I'll leave you two parties to go for it. And what happened there, Jason? Right? First of all, that client respected me for not trying to pull the wool over their eyes. And guess what? They became an advocate for my business. They've got me business multiple times, right?
Yeah.
And shared and generated leads for me out of goodwill. But also, Jason, that person that I proposed for the role has also offered leads to me as well. So I actually won doubly out of it because I got more work than just taking that. So it's always important to look at the big picture, Jason. Another thing I'd like to mention is about the difference between a want and a need. People buy out of a need. Some
Yep.
people buy out of a want, right? So it's very important to understand those distinctions, because what I've seen a lot from my research is that people, like companies, have changed wants to needs and made a want a need very, very well. We live in a first world, Jason. I don't need a car. I need a roof over my head. I need food. I need to drink water. I need oxygen. They're my needs. A lot of our other things become wants, or are actual wants, but we've converted them to needs. And people have been very clever playing on that and making sure, as you said, it'll be the end of the world if you don't do this. And then people impulse buy all the time. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think people do, like, we all impulse buy. I know I impulse buy all the time. And I'll give you an example. A few weeks ago, I was running. I finished running, and this guy said, look at this hat. And I was going, oh, good. I can imagine getting that hat. And I just went, bang, I bought it there and then. Yep, and exactly the same as that watch. It's one of those things that, do I need it? I'd like to have it. And then you go, well, I have the money and I do want it, and I think it will be of value to me going down the line. I don't necessarily need to have it, but it would be a nice thing to have. So that goes into that impulse buy where your emotions get overruled with your rational brain. Your rational brain just gets pushed to one side. And I've done that loads of times, that the impulse buy is bang. Yeah, I need to have that because I think that might make my life a little bit easier, or a piece of software that's going to make my life a bit easier. And I bought some bits of software that I think is going to make my life easier. But if someone sold me that or tried to sell me that, I probably would put up I don't really need that. Yeah. But my impulse buy, I have to think about it for a bit, and then I go, yeah, I know I can make that decision and make it really well. But on that business to business market, there is that impulse buy as well. I know a lot of companies out there that would just buy stuff for the sake of it, whether it's for ego, because some people buy because they want to have it with pride. They want to have it with an ego behind that. Might not necessarily match everything that they require out of that service or their brand.
Yeah, and that's it, Jason. You're right. Again, playing on people's emotions.
Yep.
And I see this all the time. The business to business one is a difference, is as you said, a little bit different than B2C, yep. Right? And again, my strategy is always about solving pains. I'll take my customers' pains, and I don't have an answer. They tell me, so what will you do for me? I said, I don't know until I assess your business. And when I assess your business, because Jason, if I go in and I ask 10 different senior managers if there's 10 there, and I've done this, large businesses, I'll ask them, what's the biggest problem you have today?
Yep.
I get 10 different answers from those 10 different.
Yep, exactly. Because it's different things from different people.
Yeah. And my goal then is they're the starting point. They're my cues to look further in and gather the data, and then actually discover what is actually the biggest issue today for them. And that's what I do. And I will never promise something I've known nothing about. I will have to do an assessment. That's the first part of what I do. And it's an extended inquiry process, Jason, because it's not like I can't get my client's needs on a piece of paper. I need to go in and see the processes, see the teams in action, look at their services, look at what they're doing. And I have my own assessment process to do that. And it can be quite intense. It can be a week long sometimes, Jason, before I can say, yeah, I can help you or not. And unfortunately, I have to charge for that, Jason, because it's time I need to spend.
Money.
They will, whether they want to move forward with me or not, they will have a report saying these are your issues, and this is your suggested responses in the priority you should do them in.
And I think that's the wisest and smartest thing that you could possibly do with that. But at the end of the day, that you give them value. You give them something, whether they go with you or they go with someone else, you're still giving them value, and you give them an insightful report based on their requirements and based on their needs. Look, I think we've hit the witching hour again, and time flies fast. But I don't think we still scratch the surface with this.
No, I think there's a lot to this, Jason, right? Because if you're a salesperson, it is so important to really get inside the mind of your customers, because that's where you really will leverage how you do well, how you service them, how you solve their pains, and how good a person you will be at generating good and valuable business for your business, but also for your customers too. And we have a colleague here makes a lot of sense, Shay. No instinct or reaction as you go deeper to give it more. Absolutely. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks a lot. I hope you're keeping well. And thanks, Olga, for tuning in from Ecuador. Always great to see people from different parts of the world. We hope we gave you some good knowledge there. But agree, Jason, I think we can go deeper into this because it's so important. It's the fundamentals to do good business.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a feel-good factor for you as a professional to make you feel good, but more importantly, to make the customer feel good, that they bought something that they like, something that they're going to use, something that they have that experience, however they think about the situation at the time. So we have very interesting guys. Thank you, Dymphia Fitzgerald.
Fitzgerald, yeah, I had the pleasure of meeting Dymphia recently at a FAIBF award ceremony. I hope you're keeping well, and congratulations, Dymphia, on your celebrations and your inauguration into fellow membership of the AIBF, a fantastic tribe of businesses. It's fantastic. So congratulations.
Well,
so on that, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Jason, as always. And I think we're going to do a part 3 of this next week, Jason, what I'm thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. Be a shorter week next week, but I think this is really quite important. So we do a part 3 for this next week, and we look forward to seeing everyone there.
Brilliant. Have a great day, evening, night, everyone, and we'll see you next week at another session of the Soft and Systems Side to Sales. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.